he any good with the mop?
Very.
Yeah, I never heard of a man keeping house. Not a real man.
Hey, Teresa, why don't you just put a lid on it, huh?
Look out, guys. The housekeeper's getting steamed. What you gonna do, plump my pillows? Come on, Tony. Show us what you're made of. Whip out your feather duster.
Hey, look, Teresa.
I think you're right. I think we better go. Tugboat Annie here obviously is trying to bait us, and I just refuse to stoop to her level.
You're so right. Let's go.
Don't you want to finish your drink?
Hey, Teresa, this is my boss. Will you take it easy here? You're
Why
gonna cause
not?
a problem. Come on, stop.
Hello. Welcome back to OA, the Who's the Boss podcast. I tried to channel Samantha that time. It didn't. It's not getting any better. I don't think it's going to ever get any better.
Oh, you don't know that.
But we are back with the third episode of season 1. There's really no new news this week to report before we get started. As of tonight, we're recording this on the 16th, so if something comes out after that, then
16th of
August
19. 2020.
Yeah, I said 19.
God,
Yeah, of
you wish.
2020.
You
Yeah,
wish it was 19.
Right. So as of this point, though, I just want to make it known that Judith Light has still not publicly tweeted or made any kind of comment about the Who's the Boss reboot on social media. So that can either be a good thing or a bad thing. My thought is maybe they're like negotiating, so she's not really going to say anything about it until something is like settled on her side, or she just is like it's not even on her radar. So I'm hoping for A. Cautiously optimistic, but we'll see. We'll see if some.
Me too.
You're on the edge of your seat. I know.
No, but I mean, I might not really hope she is in the
Right,
reboot.
yeah.
She should be.
I know. I'm gonna be so sad if she's, one, not in the reboot, and two, if she is in the reboot in any capacity other than Grandma Micelli. I want there to be a hashtag for Grandma Micelli out there, because that's the only way they should do this reboot. Okay, so, and Kevin, this is exciting.
Yes.
We have our first listener message.
Oh, okay, yes. I would like to hear from our first listener.
Oh, so Jamie reached out to me on Instagram, and she let us know that, so Rye, New York is not upstate New York.
Okay.
It is in Westchester County, so
Okay.
that's a little bit north of Manhattan. So I looked it up on Google Maps, and it's really about 40 minutes to an hour outside of the city. It's not far at all. It's pretty close to the actual Connecticut-New York state line. So the next time we go to New York City, you know where we're going.
Right, New York.
Yeah, we're taking the
Of course we
kids by the Who's the Boss house for sure, respectfully from a distance, of course.
Oh, yes.
But. So today's episode that we're going to cover is Season 1, Episode 3, called Angela's First Fight. But if you've noticed, if you're watching this on Amazon Prime, which is where it's streaming, which is where you definitely should be watching it right now, it says Angela's First Flight.
Right.
I was very confused by that.
It is confusing because there's a big difference between a fight and a flight.
Right. It's like, it would have been a cute little episode if, like, Angela had really never gone on anywhere on a plane.
Right.
And they take her for her first flight. She's
Angela,
nervous.
The big president of a company's never been on a plane.
New York executive, never been on a plane.
Never been on a plane.
I would have been there for that episode. I would have enjoyed that. So this episode first aired October 23rd, 1984. And the TV Guide summary is, Samantha runs away to the old neighborhood with Jonathan in tow after Angela criticizes her tomboyish behavior. And that is the full description.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The notable guest star that we'll get to on this one is a woman named Julie Carmen, who plays Teresa. And of course, Rhoda Gemignani again appears as Mrs. Rosini. All right, so
Very good.
I feel like this episode is really supposed to set us up to show how different Tony and Angela are. And like,
Right.
how her privileged lifestyle like clashes with his more physical sort of rugged lifestyle. So we start off with Tony in the kitchen ironing while watching a fight on his kitchen.
Well, I don't think it's a fight. I think he's watching hockey.
Oh, is it hockey?
Yeah, because he says something about he's got a hockey stick coming out of his ear.
Oh.
I don't know what that, like I heard something about a hockey stick coming out of his ear.
So that shows how much
it's debatable.
I know.
You guys let us know what he's watching, but I'm pretty sure it's he's watching hockey.
Oh, okay. I know nothing about sports, so...
Yeah, that's what I thought I heard.
I would have been completely confused regardless. So, yeah, he's ironing, watching sports on his cute little kitchen TV. I like that for 1984. That was a good ad. Or that was just their living room TV, which he literally wheeled into the kitchen. Like, who knows?
I know, yeah. I mean, I have a TV in the kitchen now, but it looks nothing like that.
Yeah.
Really quick, though. Internet Movie Database has a more thorough description.
Oh, yeah. I am just like...
Did you read that one? But like,
I didn't.
All their other ones are like one-liners, but this one has like a really long...
Oh. Someone was invested in this episode.
Yeah. There's a few of them like
Can you read it?
Yeah, sure. It says, Angela firmly and tonally mildly lectures Sam for fighting in the park, thus causing Jonathan to trade his first punches. So it actually makes it sound like a much better episode than it is. Instead of learning a lesson, Sam tells Jonathan all about cool, exciting Brooklyn life. When she decides to run back, Jonathan insists to tag along. Tony and Angela set out to get them back. They succeed, and they're invited to Mrs. Rosini's for dinner. Well, it says invited by Miss Rosini for dinner, sorry. While Tony shows her around, she gets in a surprisingly lively argument herself with a rude waitress, Teresa, who still has an eye on Tony.
Oh. Well, that summary...
they sell it. That sells it way better than what you read.
But our job is done. I mean, that's basically the whole episode.
Oh.
Okay, thank you for joining us. No, I'm just saying, like, that is a pretty in-depth summary right there. Yeah. So it's basically just we want to see how much... We're setting up why these two people couldn't possibly ever be together because they're so different. And he is, watching a fight immediately. I love the part with the grilled cheese sandwich, too, which is so ridiculous. You can tell Tony Danza is trying not to laugh in that part, too. And so he basically irons a grilled cheese sandwich for Angela. And the iron does nothing. And I was so grossed out by the fact that he's even hitting the steam.
Right.
So as that's going on... Mona comes in with the kids. The kids have been in a fight.
Right.
This is something that's not that unusual for Samantha, but very unusual for Jonathan. So immediately, Angela goes into panic mode. And then I love that Mona just picks up the sandwich and eats the sandwich.
I know. I was going to mention that if you didn't. It's like... makes a sandwich for her, but then, like, out of nowhere, Mona just starts gnawing on the sandwich.
I feel like as we go along, there are so many, like, funny Katherine Hellman, Mona things that go on in the background that you probably didn't notice the first run, because I know we've noticed a couple of them, and we'll have to talk about that. So, Tony's kind of...
Dishwasher
That's your dishwasher. Tony's pretty proud that... Samantha's sticking up for Jonathan and sticking up for him, and they were kind of working together as a team to, like, not let this neighborhood boy bully them. But Angela, that is, like, not her way. She's not into confrontation. You don't get into a fight. I mean, Angela's never been in a physical fight in her entire life, for sure. And, like, her upbringing was definitely much different than Tony's growing up and Samantha's at this point. So... I thought it was interesting. So then Sam and Tony go outside. And at this point, like, she's Mrs. Bauer to Samantha.
Right.
Like, they haven't really had any kind of bonding to this point. And Samantha's pretty much fed up with her and like ready to go home. And
Right.
this was a fun little
Yep.
experiment for a while, and
She's ready to go back to Brooklyn.
yeah, and they allude to that there's been other conflicts with Tony and Samantha maybe watching basketball a little too loudly.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's saying you can't yell at basketball or something.
Yeah. You can't yell, you can't fight. What do you do for fun?
Right.
And I love that she says, she's not my mother, you are.
Right.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, you know, Tony's trying to keep the peace, get them to get along a little better. Has that whole conversation with Angela about maybe her being a little more flexible and not being so hard on Samantha right away. And we were both noticing how, so there's a part where Tony like throws the basketball towards the house, makes the basket, and then Angela opens the door. It was some pretty impressive timing there.
Yeah. I'm sure it was several takes, but yes.
Yeah, definitely. But she had to really hope that he was going to make that basket and not get a basketball to the face as she opened up the door.
Right.
And they did this in front of a studio audience, so it's not like, it couldn't have been that many takes. So Samantha decides that she's going back to Brooklyn for the day, at least, to get away, to take Angela's advice and get some space. And, of course, Jonathan is, like, very interested in this. So I love none of the things that Samantha used to sell Brooklyn would have really appealed to me at all. But I guess if you're, like, a 7 or 8-year-old boy, the idea of tying a string to a rat's tail and then, and then spinning it in
and flinging
it and then throwing it, yeah. he was pretty, like, that was pretty much all she had to say, and he was ready to go. Yeah, he was in. So he tags along, even though she doesn't want him to go. And then when Mona finds the note basically saying that they're gone, Angela kind of freaks out, knowing that Jonathan, she considers this as Samantha running away and taking Jonathan with her. So I looked up, and, Tony's a little more confident that they're going to be fine. Samantha knows where she's going. She knows how to get to Mrs. Rosini's, but I looked it up, and it is like a 2.5-hour train with changes to get from Fairfield, Connecticut to Brooklyn. But this is also 1984, so probably, like, I think if we live in a very large city, but if you saw like an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old on any sort of mass transit,
what's happening?
Right, DCF would immediately be called.
I know.
But this was the time where, like, you would go out at, like, it's not unusual that they didn't know where they were, because you would leave the house 8 or 9 in the morning and not come back until it was dinner time.
And it's, and in New York, Connecticut to New York, it's a train. Kids travel. You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying back then.
Right.
It probably wasn't uncommon to see kids on a train like that.
Yeah, my mom grew up
young.
near Brooklyn, and I know that she was taking the train by herself, probably by, early teens without any issue. That was even earlier, but yeah, it's just so funny to think that now, because, kids are everything is a play date appointment, and, like, kids just don't go wander the neighborhood.
No, you don't get on your bike and, like, now.
Right, and just take off.
Like we did then, just go take off down the neighborhood.
So it's kind of fun to see. So then Angela and Tony take off in, I guess she doesn't have the Jaguar yet, so because it's like the largest station wagon I've ever seen, to go get them. And I looked that up. So driving, it probably took them about an hour to get there. So they get there, and I love that, like, it's the rough streets of Brooklyn. Like, they're really selling that. So immediately some guy comes on to Angela from the sidewalk, and there are just kids running. It's a very, like, production.
They have to honk their horn to get by.
Oh yeah, yes.
Kids are playing stickball in the street,
right,
which is a big New York thing.
And they immediately find Jonathan, who now looks like an orphan in the stage production of Annie.
I know, that's in my notes too. In my notes it says Jonathan is all dirty in Brooklyn. Like, why is he all of a sudden? Yeah.
And Samantha too, just covered in dirt from head to toe. He's holding a cockroach.
That's what happens when you go to Brooklyn. You get dirty.
You have to. And so we got an AOA.
We did.
And the reason why I tried to channel Samantha at the beginning of this podcast is because it was from her.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that runs in the family. It is a Micelli catchphrase, for sure. Not even just Tony. So yeah, so they find the kids. You know, Samantha's basically saying that she didn't want Jonathan to come with her, but he did anyway. And they find Mrs. Rosini, who was happy to have the kids there and making ravioli, I'm sure, of some sort.
Right.
And
Lasagna.
Was it lasagna?
I don't know.
Right. But it's a great shot of her just through the window with the wooden spoon with sauce at the end of the wooden spoon. Like it's very. But it's funny watching that because I was born in Brooklyn. I didn't live there very long. My parents moved out when I was 3, but my grandmother continued to live there for most of my childhood. So like the Mrs. Rosini character to me was very much like Grandma's house when she's talking about taking the plastic off the furniture and everything. Like my grandma's whole like little apartment in a 2-story brownstone in Brooklyn always smelled like Italian food, and there was definitely plastic on the furniture. So I think I just always like really enjoyed the Mrs. Rosini character because of like that aspect of it. Seeing the wooden spoon with the sauce on it. Very Italian grandma. So Tony gets to introduce Angela to Mrs. Rosini for the first time. And I think my favorite line of this whole episode is, Samantha, she's not uptight. She's just hungry. It's just so funny. So, which is another Italian grandma thing where they just immediately want to feed people.
Right. Everybody's hungry.
So Tony decides he's going to take Angela around his neighborhood and like show her how he grew up, to show kind of like that it's a completely different way of life. Mm-hmm. So they immediately land at Marty's Melody Room. And Kevin, can you tell us some of the names of the guys that hang out at Marty's Melody Room?
Yeah, it was Marty's Melody Room, which was a bar, which I'm pretty sure is a bar that's in a scene much later in another. Who's the boss? The same set.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah, probably.
You and I talked about yesterday, but. He walks in and immediately says hello to old buddies Tommy Pepsi and Billy Fingers. But I mean, like Billy Fingers, I kind of get like maybe Billy Fingers had some kind of life of crime, like Fingers, steals things. But with Tommy Pepsi's not.
Yeah, maybe he just preferred tough. Pepsi over Coke. And so
that doesn't make him tough.
Right. No, not at all.
It's like, I'm Tommy Pepsi.
Right. Although, I don't know, is Pepsi, that could just be an Italian last name, maybe.
I don't know. Somebody should let us know.
But so, if I remember correctly, later on, there's going to be a Philly Fingers that is like a secondary character that runs throughout the series. So, I wonder if maybe like they forgot that they had originally had a Billy Fingers, or
maybe it was it Philly Fingers?
Closed captioning definitely said Billy Fingers.
Okay.
So
I was about to say I'm going to go to the Internet Movie Database and make sure it's Billy Fingers, not Philly Fingers.
You can look that up for us. Sure. And then Joey Mook, that's another one too.
Oh, that was another one in this episode?
Yeah, Joey Mook is another name he mentions at the bar.
How come I didn't write that one down?
Yeah,
I probably was still flabbergasted by Tommy Pepsi.
Right, couldn't get past that one. So he's showing Angela around the bar. It appears that Tony's done a lot of things in this bar, possibly even losing his virginity or having some sort of sex act performed on him.
He says first time is...
Right,
because he says it's the first time he got...
Drunk.
Oh, what was
he
it?
Changes it to drunk. To drunk. Yeah.
But... Yeah, he says, it's the first time I did this and that, and then that room back there is the first time I got... And he's like, drunk.
So, a woman shows up. Her name is Teresa. She's a waitress at the bar, and it's obvious that she has a history with Tony. So much so that she's, like, expecting him to give her this warm welcome.
Yeah, by grabbing her on the rear end.
Right, yes. So... Which
is how she...
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's a greeting in Brooklyn. I don't...
Yeah, well, certainly between them it was, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. she seemed like she would have been welcome with that. The funny thing about this character is, and I know it's all, leading up to getting to the climax of the episode, but she is just so aggressive right out of the gate that it is hilarious. And I also think, I wonder too if not only are we seeing sort of what Tony's life was like in Brooklyn, but also kind of what Samantha's future would have been if they had actually stayed there and this was her life for the rest of her growing up, as opposed to moving to Connecticut. Like, she could have been the next Teresa working at Marty's Melody Room.
Right.
And getting into fights with people.
Or the next Billy Fingers.
She would have married Billy Fingers' son.
Billy Fingers Jr.
Right, exactly. Fingers Jr. So Teresa's kind of making insinuations about Tony and making fun of Angela, saying that she's got pointy hips or whatever. And I feel like Angela doesn't really get too angry until she kind of turns on Tony.
Right. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. And so then she really starts to kind of insult him. And before she lays into Tony, Angela's kind of ready to leave. And Tony's kind of agreeing with her.
Yeah, because the comment that's made is real men can't keep house or something.
Yeah,
or
something to that effect.
Something along the lines of... That's where she starts, and then Angela starts defending Tony.
Yeah. So now I feel like Angela's kind of also getting into a fight for the same reason that Samantha did, because Samantha mentions that the kid called her dad a sissy housekeeper.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So the next 30 seconds of this episode, if there's only one reason to watch this episode, it's for those 30 seconds.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So instead of leaving, Angela instead decides to dump 2 drinks on top of Teresa's head.
Because Teresa says, is it Tony or Teresa? Somebody says maybe you should just finish your drinks. Or sit down and finish your drinks or something
Teresa
like that.
pushes Angela back into the chair and says, don't you want to finish your drink? Yes.
That's what it is.
And so Angela does.
And she says, I sure do, or
right.
something.
She in fact does. And she pours them over Teresa's head. Right.
Which is some sort of gin drink and a beer.
Right.
And the fun fact there, too, which is another reason to watch this episode, is when Angela picks up the 2 drinks, the gin drink, I believe, when she first picks it up, is in her left hand and the beer is in her right hand. And then when they cut the scene and they show her dumping the drinks on her head, the beer is now in her right hand.
Right.
And the gin drink's in her left hand.
Yes.
And so that was interesting.
Yes.
So because she ends up dumping the drinks on her head.
Yeah, she picks them up, in whatever order she picks them up in. By the time they cut to her dumping, it's completely opposite.
Yeah, so somebody messed up.
Yeah, but it's that's a scene that you only want to have to do once.
Right.
Because otherwise that actress now has to go get the same outfit put back on or dried off, and they have to blow her hair out quickly. Yeah. Try to match the exact
they cut
same
away.
style.
It's a cutaway shot when she actually dumps the drinks on her head.
So I could even see them being oh, the drinks are in the wrong hand, but we're not doing that again.
Yeah.
But also, when people were originally watching this, it wasn't like now where we can pause and rewind and watch things.
Right, you didn't know.
Right. And it was also probably a 19 to 23-inch television as opposed to now.
Right.
But I just love catching stuff like that. We're also going to have boob mic counts because there are certainly... We haven't seen any yet.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of scenes.
There are a lot of boom mics that
where you see the boom mic in that show.
Yeah. I love catching that. So then they proceed to roll around on the floor. And Tony's trying to get in the middle of them. And it's just a comedy of...
But what happens at first is she dumps the drinks in her head. Then the fight starts. But then Angela throws her down in the chair.
Yeah, Angela.
Because that's when Angela does that weird rah thing, and she throws her hands out. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It is. Yeah. Once you watch that episode, and she's and throws her arms out. What is that? What are you doing?
Yeah.
You think that's going to keep her?
It's so good. It's going to scare her off.
I know.
So then by the time the kids and Mrs. Rosini walk into the bar, it's just like Angela on top of both of them and like throwing punches.
Yeah, I mean, it's wacky because
So-
like Tony tries to get in between the two of them, and then like they all fall down, and then at one point Tony falls down, and the person who plays Teresa, if you look really close, there are points that she's laughing while everything's going on.
Yeah,
which is
for
kinda
sure.
funny. Yeah.
There's a possibility that Judith Light could have been laughing as well, but
Right,
you
but
couldn't
you couldn't
tell
tell.
because her turtleneck was so large.
Right, and so was her hair and her glasses
It
and
covered her face for
whatever
part of that
else,
fight.
yeah. That's true.
So, obviously, the children walk in and they've now seen Angela fighting. And Tony's like, what happened to walk away and get some space? So, this is a really cute episode where Angela kind of sees where Tony's coming from, and Tony kind of sees where Angela's coming from, and Samantha, and I think it's just pushing them one step closer to, like,
Right.
really being more entwined in each other's lives and understanding, which is cute.
Another side note here, what's funny is when we watch these episodes, we take notes and we don't compare notes, and we just do the podcast without comparing notes. But in my notes, it says Angela almost suffocates by her turtleneck during the fight. And I forgot that I wrote that down. And you just mentioned that, which just makes me
Well,
laugh.
see?
It's just funny.
Because we've been married for
She
however
almost
many
suffocates.
years.
That was a heck of a turtleneck.
It was impressive. So, and then I thought it was cute, too, that, you don't see this part, but apparently they stay for dinner at Mrs. Rosini's because she's making ravioli. So,
Right. Okay. No, but wait a minute. How do you know that?
well, because before they go to the bar, Mrs. Rosini says, I'll yell when dinner's ready. And Angela's like, oh, I'm sure we'll hear you. And then Mrs. Rosini comes in with the kids, I'm guessing,
that's
to
right.
tell them that dinner's ready.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then
Yeah.
the kids see that
Right.
Angela's been fighting.
Yeah.
And then Samantha kind of rubs it in her face.
Right. But throughout the series, we'll see some other times where Angela's at Mrs. Rosini's house. And those are always funny, too. But it was cute to see that she probably, they obviously had dinner together that night. So it would have been like her first introduction fully to Mrs. Rosini. So that's it.
Yeah.
That is the third episode.
That's it. Yep. Good one. Very high
So
intensity.
do you think you're going to rate this one high, though?
Am I?
I don't want to.
I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to
Yeah,
rate
I
it.
don't want to influence your rating. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, sure. Go first. I have mine written down on my notes so I can prove to you
okay.
that's what I...
So my rating for this one's a little lower. I'm going to go with the 6. Because it's an enjoyable episode, and, the fight sequence is pretty funny. But along, as far as the episodes that we've seen up until now, I felt like this one was weaker than the other two.
Yeah, I mean, the most entertaining part, or the intense part, obviously was the fight.
Right. Yes.
Everything that happens once they enter the doors of Marty's Melody Room.
Right.
But I gave it 6.5,
Oh,
6.5
all right. So,
AOAs.
We should probably be writing these down somewhere so that we keep them later on.
Yeah, that way we don't have to go listen to all the podcasts. Because that would be boring. Anyway.
All right, so thank you very much for joining us. You can reach us at Who's the Boss podcast on Instagram. You can also reach us at anchor.fm/WTB podcast. And if you go there and you'd like to tell us anything that we've missed or any tidbits that you may have, you can leave us a voicemail if you want to that we could play on the air. All right, do we have a song for this week?
We do. It's actually by John Koneski, and it's the Who's the Boss theme song, finger-style guitar. So it's on acoustic guitar. It's a neat version.
Nice.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and tell all your friends and give you a big pat on the back.